At the family dinner, my husband's secretary called him. I smiled and pressed the speakerphone button. Her coquettish voice came through. "Honey, are you coming home tonight? I have a surprise for you." The room fell silent instantly, and my husband's face turned ashen. At the family dinner, Chu Yifan's phone rang abruptly. He glanced at the screen, flinched as if burned, quickly muted it, and tried to flip it over. I picked up a piece of dongpa pork with my chopsticks, leisurely placing it in my bowl, a perfectly measured smile on my lips. "Why aren't you answering? Is there an emergency at the company?" Sitting at the head of the table, my father-in-law, Chu Zhangxiong, cleared his throat lightly, giving his son a dissatisfied look. "Yifan, what's going on? This is so improper." The phone kept ringing at the family dinner. Fine beads of sweat formed on Chu Yifan's temples. He forced a smile uglier than a grimace. "Dad, it's nothing. Just a prank call, I gently set down my chopsticks. My diamond-studded manicured nails shimmered with fragmented light under the lamp. "Let me see, maybe it's a number I recognize. I can help you block it." As I spoke, I reached out my hand. Chu Yifan's body stiffened instantly, his eyes filled with panic. The atmosphere at the dinner table grew subtly tense. My mother-in-law, Li Lan, nudged me with her elbow, trying to smooth things over. "Ruoxia, don't mind him, it's just a phone call. Here, try this soup, I've been simmering it all afternoon for you." I picked up the soup bowl, giving him a gentle smile, but didn't take a sip. My gaze remained fixed on Chu Yifan's hand, which was tightly clutching his phone. The more nervous he became, the calmer I felt. 5 years of marriage, how much I had sacrificed for him and the Chu family. Only I truly knew, from supporting him when he had nothing, helping him found the company, securing investments, running business errands, pulling all-nighters to draft proposals, to the company going public. I had stepped back from the spotlight, content to be his full-time housewife. Everyone said Jiang Ruoxia was lucky, married to a young and promising husband, but they didn't know that half the credit for this company was mine. And they certainly didn't know the filthy face my seemingly devoted husband hid behind closed doors. Once again, I spoke up, my voice soft yet carrying an undeniable pressure. "Didn't you say there are no secrets between us?" Chu Yifan's face had already turned from red to pale, and he looked toward his parents as if pleading for help. Unfortunately, Chu Zhangxiong, who valued face above all else, only felt that his son had lost his composure at an important family banquet, his expression darkening with anger. As for Li Lan, although she felt sorry for her son, she didn't dare to openly defy me at such a moment. After all, most of the household expenses and the company's important collaborations still relied on the support of my family. "What's going on?" This was my naive sister-in-law, Chu Ifei, asking in confusion. "Brother, why don't you just answer the call? It's not like sister-in-law is going to eat you." This innocent remark became the final straw that broke Chu Yifan's psychological defenses. At that very moment, the phone rang again, as if oblivious to the situation. Still the same unregistered number under everyone's gaze. I stood up, walked gracefully to Chu Yifan's side, and took his phone before he could react. He tried to snatch it back, but I sidestepped him. Looking at the number flashing on the screen and then at his bloodless face, I smiled. "Since it's a harassing call, I'll answer it for you. I want to hear what new tricks scammers are up to these days." With that, I gave him no chance to object. My finger lightly swiped, pressing the green answer button, and I casually turned on the speakerphone. In an instant, the entire private room fell into a terrifying silence, broken only by the faint sound of our tables breathing. The next second, a woman's voice, so seductive it seemed to drip with honey, came clearly through the speaker, reaching everyone's ears. "Honey, are you coming home to stay tonight? I have a surprise for you." That word honey was uttered with endless twists and turns, full of tenderness and affection. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. I could clearly see my father-in-law, Chu Zhangxiong, holding his wine glass in midair, his expression shifting from displeasure to shock, then to fury. My mother-in-law, Li Lan, had her smile frozen on her face, and the soup spoon in her hand clattered into the bowl, splashing broth everywhere. My sister-in-law, Chu Ifei, was so shocked that her mouth hung open. She looked at the phone, then at me, her eyes filled with disbelief. As for my husband, Chu Yifan, he stood there ashen-faced, trembling uncontrollably. His gaze toward me filled with fear and pleading. Meeting his eyes, I slowly and deliberately asked into the phone, word by word, "May I ask which husband you're looking for?" The woman on the other end of the line seemed not to have expected me to answer. There was a second of silence, but she quickly regained her composure, her voice tinged with a hint of annoyance at being caught and a deliberate note of pride. "I'm looking for Chu Yifan, my husband. Who are you? Who am I?" I let out a light laugh, the sound particularly clear in the silent private room. "I am his legal wife, Jiang Ruoxia." "You're talking nonsense, saying he's long wanted to divorce you. This old hag." The woman's voice on the other end of the phone instantly turned sharp, as if she wanted to use this method to prove her status and defend that ridiculous dignity. I didn't get angry. Instead, I found it somewhat laughable. I shifted my gaze from Chu Yifan's pale face to my father-in-law, who was sitting in the main seat. "It seems outsiders know more about our Chu family's affairs than we do ourselves, Chu." Zhang Yong's expression could no longer be described as just unpleasant. He slammed the table abruptly, stood up, pointed at Chu Yifan's nose, and his lips trembled with anger. "You bastard, explain to me what's going on here." Chu Yifan stammered incoherently, sweat sliding down his cheeks and dripping onto his expensive custom-made shirt, leaving a small dark stain. He tried to snatch my phone, but I deftly avoided him. "Don't rush," I said, giving him a reassuring look, but that look only made him tremble even more. "Let's first settle the matter with this young lady on the phone," I said, putting the phone back to my mouth, speaking in a tone almost like casual conversation. "Young lady, you just said Chu Yifan wants to divorce me. Of course, he also said you have a bad temper, spend money recklessly, and act like a queen at home. He's long had enough of you." The woman on the other end of the phone seemed to have found an outlet for her emotions and began to list my faults, one after another. With each sentence she spoke, Chu Yifan's face grew paler, and the expressions of the Chu family elders darkened further. "Bad temper. In 5 years of marriage, I've never once raised my voice to my in-laws, and I've been gentle and considerate to Chu Yifan, always giving him face in public. Spend money recklessly. The dowry my family gave me when I married is enough for me to live extravagantly for a lifetime. Every penny I spend is my own. In fact, when Chu Yifan's company was just starting out, I used my dowry money to fill several funding gaps, act like a queen." Perhaps, in that woman's eyes, a woman with independent thoughts who doesn't obey him is a queen. "What else did he say?" I asked with interest, as if listening to a story that had nothing to do with me. "He also said," the woman seemed provoked by my calmness, her voice rising even higher, "he also said you're not worthy of him at all. He'll make you leave with nothing soon, and then he'll marry me openly and honestly. We've even looked at a wedding home in Guanlan Mansion in the west of the city." "Guanlan Mansion," I said, the smile on my lips deepening. "That was a large flat I bought outright with my own money last month. I originally wanted to give it to Chu Yifan as a surprise for our 5th wedding anniversary. I didn't expect there to be a surprise. But it wasn't the one I gave him, it was the one he and an outsider gave me together. So that's how it is." I nodded, my tone betraying no emotion. "It seems your feelings are really deep. Of course, you should hurry up and get a divorce. Don't hog something you can't use." Hearing these words, my mother-in-law, Li Lan, who had remained silent all this time, finally couldn't hold back. She shot up from her seat, disregarding all decorum, and pointed at the phone, cursing. "Who do you think you are? Daring to speak to our Chu family like that, you shameless homewrecker." The person on the other end of the line seemed caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a mother-in-law, pausing for a moment before letting out a cold laugh. "The Chu family. The child in my belly is the eldest grandson of your Chu family. You'd better treat me with respect." This statement exploded like a bombshell in the private room. The eldest grandson of the Chu family. I saw my mother-in-law's face instantly pale. She instinctively glanced at my stomach, her expression complicated. We had been married for 5 years, yet we had no children. It wasn't that I couldn't conceive, but Chu Yifan had said the company was just stabilizing, and he wanted to work hard for a couple more years before having children. I understood his struggles and agreed. It turned out he wasn't unwilling to become a father, he just didn't want me to be the mother of his child. How laughable. I slowly refocused my gaze on Chu Yifan's face. He seemed drained of all strength, slumped weakly in his chair, his eyes unfocused, muttering to himself, "No, it's not like that. Ruoxia, listen to me, let me explain." Finally, I wiped all traces of a smile from my face, my eyes turning as cold as ice. "All right, I'm listening, you, and this meritorious woman on the phone carrying the Chu family's eldest grandson. Let's see what kind of explanation you can give me." I placed the phone in the center of the table and pressed the speakerphone button again, ensuring everyone could hear clearly. "So, Chu Yifan, in front of your parents, your sister, and this surprise lady, how do you plan to explain this?" The entire private room fell into a deathly silence. All eyes were fixed on Chu Yifan, awaiting his judgment. Under the weight of those piercing gazes, Chu Yifan finally broke down. He fell to his knees with a thud, crawling a few steps forward to grab the hem of my skirt. "Ruoxia, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Please forgive me. This time, it was just a fling. The one I love has always been you." He wept bitterly, his face contorted in agony, his acting skills rivaling those of an award-winning actor. If I hadn't heard that phone call with my own ears, perhaps I would have softened. But unfortunately, there were no IFS. The woman on the other end of the line also heard Chu Yifan's pleas and instantly exploded. "Chu Yifan, you coward, you said you loved me, you said you would marry me. And now you're kneeling to that old hag." The woman's shrill shrieks intertwined with Chu Yifan's remorseful wails, creating an utterly absurd farce. I looked down at the man clutching my calf, crying. With snot and tears streaming down his face, this was the man I had loved for 8 years and been married to for 5. He was handsome and refined, always playing the role of the devoted, loving husband in front of others. Yet here he was, kneeling on the ground, exposing his ugly side. To save himself, he could unhesitatingly push aside another woman he claimed to love, using her as a shield. Heartless, selfish. How had I failed to see it before? Wanwan, I softly repeated these 2 words, then lifted my foot and mercilessly kicked his hand away. Chu Yifan hadn't expected me to take action. He staggered and fell to the floor, looking at me in disbelief as if I were a stranger. "Jiang Ruoxia, you, me what?" I looked down at him from above, my eyes devoid of any warmth. "Chu Yifan, do you think a simple "it was just a fling" can erase everything?" I turned to the phone and spoke to the woman who was still screaming. "Miss, what does he call you? Darling, sweetheart, or perhaps the future Mrs. Chu?" The woman on the other end of the phone was caught off guard by my question and instinctively replied, "She calls me Weiwei, Weiwei." I smiled. "Chu Yifan, did you hear that? Your Weiwei is very sad right now. Jiang Ruoxia, don't listen to his nonsense. It was him who seduced me. It was all him." Chu Yifan, as if grasping at a life-saving straw, frantically shifted the blame outward. "I seduced you, Chu Yifan. Are you even a man? Who was it that said Jiang Ruoxia was just a decoration when you were pursuing me, that you two had no feelings left? Who said that as long as I agreed, you would divorce her immediately? Who gave me a Maserati on my birthday? Now that something has happened, you're pushing everything onto me." The woman named Weiwei was clearly no pushover either. Her words carried a massive amount of information. A Maserati. I remember last month, the company had an expenditure of 500,000 yuan. When the finance department reported it, Chu Yifan explained that it was used to entertain an important client. I didn't suspect anything at the time, but now it seems this important client was his Weiwei, using our marital assets to please another woman. "Chu Yifan, you're really something. Enough." Father-in-law Chu Zhengxiong finally couldn't take it anymore. Trembling with anger, he picked up a teacup from the table and smashed it hard on the ground. With a crisp crack, porcelain shards flew everywhere. "Hang up the phone, family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. Isn't this embarrassing enough?" Chu Yifan, as if granted a pardon, scrambled over to hang up the phone, but my foot stepped on the phone first. I was wearing a pair of 8-centimeter stiletto heels, and the heel landed precisely in the center of the phone screen. "Dad," I looked at Chu Zhengxiong, my tone calm but carrying an undeniable force. "This is my matter, and it's also Chu Yifan's matter. I think it's better to make things clear." Chu Zhengxiong was taken aback by my attitude. "Sister-in-law," my sister-in-law Chu Feifei whispered, tugging at the corner of my clothes, "why don't we just let it go? My brother knows he was wrong." I glanced at her. this well-protected little princess still thought this was just an ordinary marital argument. Fei. This isn't something that can be settled just by admitting a mistake. I applied a little more pressure with my foot, and with a crisp crack, the phone screen shattered. The voices on the call abruptly stopped. Chu Yifan looked at the latest model phone with heartache but didn't dare say another word. I lifted my foot, bent down to pick up the now ruined phone, and placed it back on the table. Then I pulled out the chair and sat back down. I looked across at Chu Yifan, whose face was ashen, and at my in-laws, who wore grave expressions. Mom, Dad, since things have come to this point today, let's speak frankly. I paused, giving them a moment to digest my words. I want a divorce from Chu Yifan. These 6 words I spoke. Clearly and firmly, no angry shouting, no tearful grievances, just stating a fact that could no longer be changed. My mother-in-law, Li Lan, instantly turned pale. Ruoxia, don't be impulsive, he was just confused for a moment. Men, who hasn't made mistakes, for the sake of your dad and me, give him another chance. Yes, my sister-in-law, Chu Fei, chimed in, trying to persuade me. Brother loves you the most, that woman is just a seductress, don't ruin all these years of feelings over an outsider. How ironic their words were. A man who makes mistakes should be forgiven, while the woman who suffers must consider the bigger picture. Why, Mom, Fei, I looked at them, a hint of pity in my eyes. Do you really think his affair, getting another woman pregnant, and transferring marital assets are just momentary lapses? My words left them speechless. Loves me the most. I turned to Chu Yifan and sneered. Chu Yifan, tell me yourself, what do you love about me? My family background, which can secure investments for your company, my connections, which help you land important clients, or the fact that I work tirelessly, clean up all the messes at your company, and still obediently come home to cook for you. Chu Yifan opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single word because every sentence I spoke struck a nerve. Let me tell you, your so-called love is too cheap and too disgusting. Jiang Ruoxia, don't want it. I stood up and picked up my handbag. The divorce papers will be delivered to your office by my lawyer tomorrow. How the assets will be divided will be clearly stated. As for you, I walked up to her, leaned in slightly, and spoke in a voice only the 2 of us could hear. You'd better pray that everything you've done is clean, otherwise. I straightened up without finishing, but the warning in my eyes sent a chill down his spine. Jiang Ruoxia, stop right there. Seeing that I was really leaving, Chu Zhenxiong finally couldn't hold back, his tone commanding. Couples fight and make up. Who gets a divorce over every little thing? What will people think of our Chu family if you do this? Where will our face be? I stopped and looked back at him. Dad, the one who has shamed the Chu family isn't me, the wife who was cheated on, but your son, who can't control his own desires. Let him think for himself. What's more important, him, your so-called mistress, and that eldest grandson, or the future of the entire Chu family? With that, I didn't linger any longer. I pulled open the private room door and walked out without looking back. Behind me came the anxious cries of my mother-in-law and Chu Fei. Ruoxia, don't go, sister-in-law. I didn't turn back. Stepping out of the hotel entrance, the evening breeze felt cool against my face. I took a deep breath, forcing back the unworthy tears welling in my eyes. Tears are the most useless thing in this world. From today onward, Jiang Ruoxia, will not shed a single tear for Chu Yifan. I took my phone out of my bag and dialed a number. Hello, is this Su Qin? It's me. On the other end of the line came the crisp voice of my best friend, Su Qin. What's wrong, Ruoxia? It sounds a bit noisy on your end. It's nothing. I looked at the bustling street, my voice eerily calm. I'm ready. Activate Plan B. Su Qin was my college best friend and a well-known divorce lawyer in the industry. It seemed she had long anticipated this day. There was no surprise in her voice on the phone, only a sense of finality. Have you thought it through? No regrets? Absolutely none. My voice carried a slight tremor I hadn't even noticed, but there was more relief than anything else. All right, Su Qin offered no unnecessary comfort. She knew I didn't need it. The evidence is all ready. It's in the safe in my study. The password is your birthday. Ruthless. Su Qin chuckled lightly on the other end. Fine, I'll go pick it up first thing tomorrow morning. I guarantee your soon-to-be ex-husband won't even have a pair of underwear left. After hanging up, I hailed a taxi and gave the address of an apartment in the city center. It was a property I owned before marriage. Not large, but enough for me to settle in alone. The car moved smoothly through the city's nightscape. The neon lights outside the window flashing by like fleeting, dazzling dreams. I leaned against the window, looking at the reflection of my face, meticulously made up but unable to hide the exhaustion, and my thoughts drifted back to a long time ago. In truth, I had known for a while that Chu Yifan was seeing someone else. It started about 6 months ago. He came home later and later, the scent of his cologne shifting from the familiar woody fragrance I knew to a cloyingly sweet floral scent I didn't recognize. He began smiling foolishly at his phone and even took it into the bathroom when he showered. Our communication dwindled, and our intimate life as a couple almost completely vanished. When a man's heart changes, the signs are so obvious they can't be hidden. I wasn't blind to them. I gave him chances, hinting, asking if work was too exhausting, humbling myself to learn how to cook his favorite dishes, hoping to win back his stomach and, in turn, his heart on our 4th wedding anniversary. I even took the initiative to ask if we could have a child. I thought the arrival of a child might make this family whole again. But how did he answer me? He said, "Ruoxia, can you stop being so childish? The company is at a critical stage right now. How could I possibly have the energy to take care of a child?" He said, "You stay at home every day, can't you stop overthinking and causing trouble for me?" He said, "If you're bored, go shopping, get a facial, arrange flowers, do anything, just don't bother me." At that moment, my heart grew colder and colder. I finally understood. It wasn't that he didn't want a child. He just didn't want the child's mother to be me. It wasn't that he was too busy with work either. He was simply devoting all his energy and time to another woman. From that day on, I stopped making any futile attempts to hold on. I began quietly gathering evidence. I secretly placed a voice recorder in his car, and I documented every unusual transaction in our joint account. I even hired a private investigator who captured photos of him and that woman entering and leaving hotels together, looking at houses, and even shopping at baby stores. That woman was his secretary, Lin Weiwei, a recent college graduate of just 2 years, young, beautiful, and skilled at admiration and adoration. Unlike me, she hadn't witnessed all his struggles and failures, nor did she know all the scheming and tactics behind his success. In his eyes, I was too strong, too clever, like a mirror, constantly reflecting his pettiness and baseness. Lin Weiwei, on the other hand, could satisfy all the vanity of a successful man. Looking at those unsightly photos and listening to the recordings, I didn't cry or make a scene. I simply calmly organized them one by one and locked them in the safe. I was waiting for the right moment, a moment that would bring him utter ruin and leave him with nothing. And today, at the Chu family dinner, he handed that moment to me himself. The taxi pulled up in front of my apartment building. I paid the fare and dragged my exhausted body into the elevator, opening the door. The room was pitch dark, filled with the dusty smell of a place long uninhabited. I didn't turn on the lights. Groping my way to the floor-to-ceiling window instead, I looked out at the dazzling night view, the countless lights of the city, yet not a single one was lit for me. Just then, my phone started ringing frantically. It was Chu Yifan. I let it ring, not answering. Once, twice, 3 times. He seemed to have all the patience in the world. Finally, the ringing stopped, and a WeChat message popped up. "Ruoxia, where are you? Let's talk. Listen to me. Let me explain." I sneered and typed a reply. "There's nothing left to talk about between us. Wait for my lawyer's letter." "No, Ruoxia, you can't do this to me." His message came almost instantly. "We're husband and wife. You can't be so heartless." Husband and wife. I looked at those 2 words, feeling utterly ironic. When you were rolling in the sheets with Lin Weiwei, when you used our shared assets to buy her a car and a house, when you were planning to leave me with nothing, why didn't you remember we were husband and wife then? After I sent the message, the other side fell silent. A long time passed before he sent a long voice message. I clicked on it. It was his tearful plea. "Ruoxia, I know I was wrong. I really know. I've cut ties with Lin Weiwei. I'll make her get rid of the child right away. Come back, okay? Let's start over. Go back to how things were before, for the sake of all these years of feelings between us. Give me one more chance. Just one last chance. Go back to how things were before." How lightly he said it. How can shattered trust be pieced back together? How can betrayed feelings be restored? Once a mirror is broken, it can never be made whole again. I didn't reply again. Instead, I immediately blocked his phone number and WeChat. This night was destined to be sleepless. I didn't know what kind of chaos was unfolding in the Chu household, and I didn't care. I just sat quietly in the dark, replaying the past 5 years of marriage in my mind like a movie, frame by frame. There was sweetness, arguments, support, and indifference. I once thought we would be the epitome of growing old together, hand in hand. Now, it seems, it was just a one-woman show. As the sky began to lighten with the first hint of dawn, I stood up and pulled open the heavy curtains. The first ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating the entire room and the resolve in my eyes. Chu Yifan, Lin Weiwei. The Chu family, what you owe me, I will reclaim, every last bit. With interest. The game has only just begun. The next morning, I met Su Qin at a cafe. She was dressed in a sharp black suit, her hair impeccably styled, and she wore 10-centimeter high heels, exuding an aura of confidence. Here's what you asked for, she said, sliding a craft paper envelope toward me. All the evidence has been copied 3 times. 1 copy has been sent to the notary office, 1 is for our records. And I've already had my assistant deliver the 3rd copy to Chu Yifan. I opened the paper bag to find a thick stack of documents, intimate photos of Chu Yifan and Lin Weiwei, each one clear enough to be used as a desktop wallpaper, the transaction records of all the bank cards under his name, with every transfer to Lin Weiwei clearly circled in red, the purchase contract for the Maserati he gave to Lin Weiwei, the buyer was him, and the payment account was our joint marital account, and the purchase agreement for the Guanlan mansion he bought for Lin Weiwei, also in her name. Most crucial of all was the transcript of the recording. In the recording, Chu Yifan promised Lin Weiwei that once the company's next project was secured, he would find a way to transfer most of the company's liquid assets to an overseas account. Then he would divorce me and take her and their child far away. He said, that woman Jiang Ruoxia is too shrewd, always wanting to control everything. I've had enough of her. Once I transfer the assets, the company will be nothing but an empty shell, left for her to cry over with nowhere to turn. What an empty shell, what a place to cry with nowhere to turn. As I looked at this ironclad evidence of betrayal, my heart felt as if it were being tightly squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain almost suffocating. Yet my face remained calm. Su Qin looked at me, his eyes filled with pity. Ruoxia, if you want to cry, go ahead, there are no outsiders here. I shook my head and carefully placed the documents back into the paper bag. Tears are for the weak, and I have no time for weakness now. Su Qin sighed and took another document from his bag. This is the divorce agreement I drafted based on the evidence you provided. In terms of assets, I argue that Chu Yifan, as the at-fault party in the marriage, should leave with nothing. The company we founded after marriage, Fanxia Technology, along with all real estate, vehicles, and deposits, should belong to you. Additionally, I will demand 5 million in compensation for emotional distress. The name Fanxia Technology was derived from our names. Back then, he said it symbolized the company as the fruit of our love, that we would never part. Now, thinking back, it feels like the greatest irony. Will he agree? I asked. He won't, Su Qin replied bluntly. A man as selfish as Chu Yifan would rather die than leave with nothing, so the next step is bound to be a tough battle. He will definitely try every means to transfer assets and might even turn around and bite you. That's why, before you came, I already applied to the court for asset preservation and froze all the accounts and assets under his name. Right now, apart from that credit card with a monthly limit of just 5,000 yuan, he can't touch a single cent. Su Qin's efficiency is always so reassuring. What about the company? That's what worries me the most. It's my years of hard work. The company is more complicated. Su Qin's expression turned serious. Although you co-founded the company with him, legally speaking, he is the legal representative and the majority shareholder, holding 51% of the shares. Although you are a co-founder, to reassure him back then, you only held the title of a shareholder with a 30% stake. The remaining 19% is in the hands of a few early employees. Once a lawsuit starts, Even if he is found guilty of marital infidelity, the court will at most rule that you split the shares in his possession equally. That means you can only get up to 55% of the shares, which is still not enough for you to have veto power in the board of directors. If he teams up with other minority shareholders, he could sideline you at any time. This is indeed a problem. Back then, for the sake of love and so-called trust, I gave up too many rights that should have been mine. Now, all of these have become weapons that Chu Yifan can use against me. But don't worry, Su Qin changed the subject. You forgot you still have a trump card. I was taken aback for a moment, then realized what he meant. Are you talking about the star system? Exactly. Su Qin snapped his fingers. The reason Fanxia Technology was able to stand out among so many internet companies back then and go public in one fell swoop was because of the star big data processing system you independently developed. The core code patent for this system is in your hands, and it's your premarital property, right? I nodded. In college, I majored in computer science, while Chu Yifan studied marketing. We were a perfect match, one handling internal affairs, the other external. The star system was the result of my graduation project. After continuous improvements, it became the technological barrier for Fanxia Technology. When registering the patent, Chu Yifan also suggested registering it under the company's name, but I was cautious and insisted on registering it under my personal name. At the time, I just felt that this was the fruit of my own hard work and should belong to me. I never expected this unintentional move would become my most important bargaining chip today. You signed a patent licensing agreement with the company back then, not a transfer agreement. Su Qin's eyes gleamed shrewdly. In other words, you have the right to terminate the license at any time. Without the star system, Fanxia Technology is just an empty shell. Its stock price would plummet within a day. My heart tightened abruptly. That was my life's work. Was I really going to destroy it with my own hands? Su Qin noticed my hesitation. Ruoxia, I know you have feelings for the company, but now is not the time for soft-heartedness. Chu Yifan has already pushed you to the edge of a cliff. Taking one step back means a bottomless abyss. What you need to do isn't destroy it, but take it back completely from Chu Yifan's hands and make it truly belong to the Jiang family. Su Qin's words struck me like a heavy hammer, hitting my heart hard. Yes, why should I give up what rightfully belongs to me? I took a deep breath, and my eyes regained their determination. I understand, Su Qin. Thank you, we're sisters. No need to be so formal. Su Qin patted my hand. Now, get ready to face what's coming. The Chu family won't let this go easily. Su Qin's words turned out to be prophetic. Just as we stepped out of the cafe, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment but still answered. On the other end, my mother-in-law Li Lan's sharp, tearful voice came through. Jiang Ruoxia, you vicious woman, what have you done to Yifan? He's been suspended by the company's board of directors now. Are you trying to drive our whole family to ruin? I held the phone, feeling nothing but absurdity and bitterness. Mom, are you mistaken? The one driving me, and this family, to ruin is your precious son, Chu Yifan. How dare you talk nonsense? He just made a mistake in the moment. Why can't you give him another chance? Why do you have to be so ruthless? Li Lan was hysterically crying on the other end of the phone. When he was transferring our joint marital assets, did he ever think of giving me a chance? When he got another woman pregnant and planned to leave me with nothing, did he ever think of giving me a chance? My voice wasn't loud, but every word felt like a cold knife. 10 years of marriage, I, Jiang Ruoxia, have never wronged her or the Chu family in any way, but what about her? And how did he treat me, now that the truth has come out? Instead of going after the one who made the mistakes, you're blaming me, the victim, for being too ruthless. Mom, is there any justice in this world? My series of questions left Li Lan momentarily speechless. He stammered for a long time, only able to repeat that feeble line over and over. But, cuckoo, he is still your husband. He's part of our Chu family. From the moment I decided to divorce, he was no longer that. And please tell Chu Yifan to stop having you call me a man who only hides behind his parents disgusts me. After saying that, I hung up the phone and promptly blocked the number. Su Qin beside me gave me a thumbs up. Well done. When dealing with a mother-in-law who can't see reason, you can't leave her any room for sentiment. I smiled bitterly. There was a time when I genuinely treated Li Lan as my own mother and cared for her with all my heart. She loved listening to opera, so I went out of my way to buy her the most expensive tickets. She loved playing mahjong, so I bought her a top-tier ivory set. Her health wasn't good, so every month I accompanied her to the hospital for checkups and bought her the best supplements. I thought that sincerity would be met with sincerity. But in the end, in her eyes, I was always just an outsider. No matter how big a mistake her son made, he was still her precious child, while I, as the daughter-in-law, was expected to swallow my pride and endure everything for the sake of her son's future and the Chu family's reputation. Next, Chu Yifan will probably reach out to you on his own. Su Qin analyzed for me. Suspended from his job, accounts frozen. He's like a tiger with its teeth pulled out now, and he'll have no choice but to beg you. He'll beg me. I thought of the pitiful face he made when he knelt at the family dinner. And my stomach churned with disgust. Of course, he'll play the emotional card, he'll repent, he'll swear, he'll use every trick in the book to make you soften, withdraw the lawsuit and lift the asset freeze. Su Qin sneered. Once he catches his breath, he'll find a way to devour you, leaving nothing behind. There's only one way to deal with this kind of person. What way? Drag it out, leave him hanging. Make him understand that you're the one setting the rules now. Over the next few days, things unfolded exactly as Su Qin had predicted. Chu Yifan started frantically calling and texting me, using countless different numbers. I answered one, blocked one. The messages he sent me went from angry accusations at first, to low, pleading tones later, and then to deep, sentimental recollections. He wrote about every little detail of our journey, from meeting to falling in love to getting married, turning them into little essays and sending them to me one by one. He said he remembered the nights we ate at roadside stalls. He said he remembered how I stayed awake for 3 days and 3 nights to help him with a project. He said his biggest regret was not cherishing me properly. If I had seen these words 6 months ago, I might have been deeply moved, but now, looking at these overly sentimental and contrived texts, I only felt an overwhelming sense of irony. If only he had known better. Why did he act that way in the first place? A person only learns to cherish what they have when they lose it, but there's no such thing as a pill for regret in this world. I didn't reply to a single one of his messages. Seeing that the soft approach didn't work, he started to get tough. He went to my parents' house. My parents are honest, straightforward intellectuals. They've never encountered anything like this before. Chu Yifan broke down in tears in front of them, shifting all the blame onto Lin Weiwei, saying he had been blinded by a seductress. My parents, soft-hearted as they are, ended up calling me to persuade me, saying there are no grudges between husband and wife that last overnight, and that I should give him a chance to repent and start anew. I had no choice but to send my dad a copy of the photos and the transcript of the recordings proving Chu Yifan's infidelity. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and when he finally spoke again, my father's voice was filled with anger and exhaustion. If it's because mom and dad were confused, this marriage must end in divorce. Our Jiang family's daughter cannot suffer such grievances. Don't worry, if he dares to come to our house again in the future, I'll break his legs. That settles it. On the parents' side, Chu Yifan still seems unwilling to give up. He started contacting our mutual friends, asking them to act as mediators. He even reached out to my sister-in-law, Chu Feifei, to persuade me. That afternoon, Chu Feifei invited me to a dessert shop we used to frequent. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. Sister-in-law, my brother really knows he was wrong. He hasn't been able to eat or sleep these past few days and has lost a lot of weight. He says he was a scoundrel, he's not human, and he's sorry for you. Can you forgive him just this once? I stirred the coffee in front of me without saying a word. Seeing my indifference, Chu Feifei grew anxious. Sister-in-law, that woman, Lin Weiwei, the child in her belly is gone. My hand holding the coffee spoon paused. What do you mean? My brother went to see her that day and asked her to abort the child. She refused, and they started arguing. During the scuffle, she accidentally fell, and Chu Feifei's voice grew softer and softer. I looked at her, feeling a chill in my heart. Chu Yifan is truly ruthless. To win me back and protect his assets and status, he could actually destroy his own child. Although that child should never have come into this world, it was still a life. Even a tiger doesn't eat its own cubs. Chu Yifan, he's worse than an animal. Sister-in-law, look, my brother even gave up the child for you. That's enough to prove that you're still the one he loves most in his heart. Him. I slammed the coffee cup heavily on the table, coffee spilled out, splashing onto Chu Feifei's hand. She was startled and swallowed the rest of her words. I looked at her coldly. Chu Feifei, you're a woman too. If you were the one going through all this today, could you so lightly utter the word forgive? A man who, to protect himself, can sacrifice his own flesh and blood without hesitation. You call that love? If you want such love, you can have it. I'm not worthy of it. With those words, I stood up and left without looking back at her. I finally understood that there was no reasoning with the Chu family. In their world, there is only self-interest, no right or wrong. Back at the apartment, the first thing I did was call Su Qin. Su Qin, I don't want to wait any longer. Tomorrow, I'm holding a press conference. Also, help me schedule a meeting with the board of directors of Fanxia Technology. The day after tomorrow, I'm convening an extraordinary shareholders meeting. I'm going to take back everything that belongs to me. Su Qin acted quickly. The next day at 10 a.m., the conference hall downstairs at Fanxia Technology was packed with reporters from major media outlets who had caught wind of the news. Camera flashes flickered one after another, illuminating the entire venue as brightly as daylight. Wearing a white suit and skirt, with a refined and capable makeup look, I walked up to the podium accompanied by Su Qin. Instantly, a wave of shutter sounds erupted from below. I knew they were all curious. Why had I, the Mrs. Chu who had always stayed behind the scenes, suddenly stepped into the spotlight today? I also knew they were even more eager to find out why Chu Yifan, the CEO of Fanxia Technology, had suddenly been suspended by the board of directors, ignoring the probing gazes from below. I walked straight to the microphone and stood still. First, I thanked all the media friends for taking the time to attend my personal statement press conference. My voice, amplified by the microphone, clearly reached every corner of the venue. My name is Jiang Ruoxia. I am a co-founder of Fanxia Technology and the ex-wife of Mr. Chu Yifan. As soon as the words ex-wife left my mouth, the room erupted in an uproar. Reporters, like sharks smelling blood, immediately aimed their cameras and microphones at me. Ms. Jiang, is what you're saying true? Have you and Mr. Chu already divorced? What was the reason for the divorce? Is it related to Mr. Chu's suspension? There are rumors that Mr. Chu was unfaithful during the marriage. Is that true? Questions flooded in like a tide. Su Qin stepped forward at the right moment, raising a hand to signal for everyone to calm down. Everyone, please remain calm. Ms. Jiang has called this press conference today precisely to clarify all your doubts. Please take turns asking questions one by one. I nodded to Su Qin, signaling that I was fine. Taking a deep breath, I spoke again. I stand here today to announce 3 things. First, due to irreconcilable differences, Mr. Chu Yifan and I officially ended our marriage yesterday. Second, regarding the reason for the divorce. It is indeed as the reporter friend just mentioned. Mr. Chu Yifan had a long-term inappropriate relationship with his secretary, Ms. Lin Weiwei, during our marriage, which resulted in Ms. Lin Weiwei's pregnancy. I have concrete evidence of all this. This statement once again caused a stir in the crowd. Camera flashes intensified, almost blinding me. I forced myself to stay composed, avoiding the gazes from below, some sympathetic, some gossipy, some gloating. I knew there was no turning back once the arrow was released. Since I had chosen this path, I had to walk it firmly. Third, I paused and dropped the most explosive news of the day. I, as the sole patent owner of the Stardust Big Data Processing System, would formally notify Fanxia Technology to terminate the patent license. From today onward, Fanxia Technology would no longer have the right to use any technology related to the Stardust system. This statement was 100 times more powerful than the earlier revelation of marital infidelity. The reporters below fell into a deathly silence, followed by an unprecedented uproar. Terminate the license. Without the Stardust system, isn't Fanxia Technology finished? My God, this is pulling the rug out from under them. Ms. Jiang, may I ask if you're doing this out of revenge? Have you considered the enormous impact this will have on the company's stock price? A financial reporter stood up and asked sharply. Sir, I'd like to correct one thing. I replied, looking at him with composure. This is not revenge. I'm merely reclaiming what rightfully belongs to me. The Stardust system is my personal premarital property, and I have the right to decide who to license it to. As for the company's stock price, I scanned the room, my voice firm and resolute. I believe a company's value should not be built on the betrayal and deception of its founder. How can a management team that cannot even uphold the most basic morals and integrity lead the company to greater heights? I trust the market will make the fairest choice. My words landed with weight, and for a moment, even the reporters who had intended to ask tricky questions were left speechless. The press conference ended. But the storm it stirred had only just begun. The news of my ex-wife exposing a scumbag and withdrawing the company's core technology made headlines across major financial and entertainment platforms within just an hour. Fanshawe Technologies' stock price plummeted, hitting the daily limit down within half an hour of the market opening, leaving countless investors wailing online. Chu Yifan's phone was ringing off the hook, and the company's public relations department descended into unprecedented chaos. I knew Chu Yifan must have wanted to tear me to pieces at that moment, but I simply sat calmly on the sofa in my apartment, watching the constant stream of news alerts on my phone, sipping the black tea Suchin had brewed for me. How do you feel? Suchin asked. I'm okay, I replied, setting down the teacup and letting out a long sigh. Calmer than I imagined. That's right, Suchin smiled. You're not destroying him, you're saving him. Only through fire can one be reborn. My phone vibrated, a text message from an unfamiliar number. Jiang Ruoxia, you're ruthless. You win, I admit it. I looked at the message, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. Win, this is only the first step, I replied. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., the company's shareholders meeting. I'll be waiting. I want to see if you still have the right to sit in that CEO's seat. The next day, the atmosphere at the emergency shareholders meeting was so tense it felt like it could drip water. In the spacious conference room, around the long oval table, sat all the directors and shareholders of Fanshawe Technology. Each of them wore a grave expression, their eyes complex as they looked at me seated to the left of the head of the table. The seat to the right, belonging to CEO Chu Yifan, was empty. The time had already passed 9:05, and he still hadn't appeared. Ms. Jiang, about CEO Chu, is he not coming? An older director asked uneasily. He was a company veteran who had watched Chu Yifan and me build the business from scratch. I gave him a slight nod, signaling him to stay calm. Director Wang, don't worry, I believe CEO Chu will come. As soon as the words left my mouth, the conference room door was abruptly pushed open from the outside. Chu Yifan stood in the doorway, his eyes bloodshot, hair disheveled, and suit wrinkled, a far cry from his usual confident and spirited appearance. He looked as if he hadn't slept for days, his entire being exuding an air of defeat and madness. He stared at me with a deathly glare, as if he wanted to devour me whole. Jiang Ruoxia, he snarled through gritted teeth, taking one step after another toward me. You've destroyed the company, you poisonous woman. He stopped in front of me, raising his hand as if to slap me. I didn't flinch, just stared back at him coldly. Suchin, sitting beside me, stood up first and grabbed his wrist. Mr. Chu, please restrain yourself. This is a shareholders' meeting, not a place for you to act recklessly. If you lay a finger on Ms. Jiang, I guarantee you'll face an additional charge of intentional assault. Suchin was a lawyer, and his words carried the weight of legal authority. Chu Yifan's arm froze in midair, and in the end, he reluctantly lowered it. He walked around me and plopped down in his seat, his chest heaving violently. The board members present frowned at his unseemly behavior. All right, since everyone is here, let's begin. I cleared my throat, breaking the awkward silence. The purpose of gathering everyone today is only one. I swept my gaze over everyone in the room. Finally, it landed on Chu Yifan's face. That is to re-elect the chairman and president of Fanshawe Technology. I hereby propose the removal of Mr. Chu Yifan from all his positions. My words were like a stone thrown into a calm lake. Everyone began whispering and discussing among themselves. Chu Yifan slammed the table and stood up abruptly. On what grounds, Jiang Ruoxia? On what grounds do you remove me? I am the largest shareholder of the company. This company was founded by me, by you. I felt as if I had heard the biggest joke of all time. Chu Yifan, ask your own conscience. Without me, without the star system, what are you? You. He was left speechless by my words. Board members, shareholders. I turned to the others. Ignoring him, I believe everyone saw the news yesterday. Mr. Chu Yifan's personal conduct has severely damaged the company's reputation, causing the stock price to plummet and resulting in significant losses for all of you. More importantly, I emphasized my tone. For his own personal gain, he even attempted to transfer the company's core assets, hollowing out the company. Does someone like this still have the right to continue leading Fanxia Technology? I distributed the recording evidence I had long prepared about Chu Yifan's attempt to transfer assets to everyone present. As they listened, their expressions grew increasingly grim. It was simply outrageous. Chairman Wang angrily slammed the documents in his hand on the table. Chu Yifan, we trusted you so much, and this is how you repay us. Yes, President Chu, what you've done is truly unethical. Fortunately, Ms. Jiang discovered it early, or else we old-timers would have been completely ruined by you. For a moment, all the accusations in the meeting room were directed at Chu Yifan. He was left speechless, his face turning as red as a pig's liver. He probably never imagined that he would one day find himself in such a situation, where everyone would turn against him when the wall was falling. He glared at me viciously, as if trying to kill me with his eyes. I calmly met his gaze. Chu Yifan, at this point, what else do you have to say? After a long silence, he suddenly let out a low, cold laugh. Ha, Jiang Ruoxia, don't get too smug. Even if all of you agree, what can you do? I hold 51% of the shares, giving me absolute control. As long as I don't agree, this dismissal proposal won't pass. He was right. This was exactly what I was most worried about. Even if all the minority shareholders sided with me, their combined shares would only amount to 19%, adding my own 30%, that's still only 49%, which still wouldn't be enough to shake his position. The previously furious crowd in the meeting room instantly fell silent again. Yes, no matter how much they spoke up, they were still just minority shareholders, unable to influence the final decision. Seeing the dejection on everyone's faces, a hint of smugness finally appeared on Chu Yifan's face. It seemed he had regained that feeling of being in control of everything. Jiang Ruoxia, I admit I've stumbled this time, but it won't be so easy for you to kick me out. I suggest you withdraw that ridiculous termination of authorization statement right now, let the company's stock price recover, and then we can have a proper discussion about the divorce terms. Otherwise, if we keep dragging this out, it won't benefit anyone. It'll only end in mutual destruction. He was starting to negotiate with me, thinking he still held the final trump card, believing I would compromise for the sake of the company's overall situation as I had in the past. Unfortunately, he was mistaken. Looking at his smug, petty expression, I slowly smiled. Chu Yifan, do you think your 51% stake is a guarantee of absolute security? Isn't it? He retorted. Of course not. I shook my head and took another file folder from Suchin behind me. I took out the contents of the file folder one by one and laid them on the table. They were share transfer agreements. Director Wang, this is the 2% stake you transferred to Chu Yifan in your son's name 3 years ago, right? Director Wang was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. Yes, at that time, Yifan said he wanted to consolidate equity to facilitate company management. Your son was studying abroad at the time, so this agreement was signed on his behalf by you. Correct? Yes. Director Wang's expression began to look uneasy. According to company law, share transfers must be signed by the individual or accompanied by a power of attorney. Signing on behalf of someone else is invalid. Suchin chimed in at the right moment. Director Wang's face instantly turned pale, and Chu Yifan's expression darkened immediately. Ignoring them, I took out a second agreement. General Manager Li, this is the 3% stake you transferred to Chu Yifan 2 years ago. At the time, he promised you dividends above market rates, but as far as I know, the dividends you've received over the past 2 years have been no different from those of other shareholders. This constitutes commercial fraud. According to contract law, contracts entered into through fraudulent means can be revoked by the aggrieved party through a court or arbitration institution. Suchin spoke up again, and General Manager Li's expression also turned extremely unpleasant. I continued, one document after another. Back then, in order to secure absolute control, Chu Yifan used all sorts of underhanded methods to buy shares from minority shareholders. Every agreement was now laid out on the table. Coercion, inducement, deception, those tactics from back then had now become the weapons I used to strike back at him. The minority shareholders present looked at the agreements, their expressions shifting unpredictably, anger, shame, and sudden realization flickering in their eyes. As for Chu Yifan, his face had turned from pale to ashen, then from ashen to dark. His hands under the table were clenched tightly into fists, veins bulging on the back of his hands. He never imagined that these old matters he thought were perfectly concealed would be dug up by me, one by one. Chu Yifan, I looked at him and said clearly, word by word, over the years, you've managed to acquire 6% of the shares from them. But legally speaking, those shares don't belong to you at all. In other words, the shares you truly hold amount to only 45%. I pointed at myself and added, along with the other shareholders who are willing to support me, we hold 55% of the shares. Now, who do you think is the real owner of this company? My voice echoed in the silent conference room. Chu Yifan seemed as if all his strength had been drained, slumping dejectedly into his chair. The smugness and arrogance on his face vanished completely, replaced by a deathly despair. He had lost, utterly and completely. Now, I stood up and scanned the room. I proposed once again to remove Chu Yifan from all his positions. At Fanxia Technology, those in favor, please raise your hands. As the words fell, arms in the conference room slowly but resolutely began to rise. 1, 2, 3, everyone except Chu Yifan raised their hands. Just then, the door to the conference room was pushed open again, and someone no one expected appeared in the doorway. He was wearing a hospital gown, his face pale, his belly slightly swollen, but his eyes held a kind of desperate madness. It was Lin Weiwei. He looked at the dramatic scene in the conference room and suddenly let out a piercing laugh. Chu Yifan, didn't you say you loved me? Didn't you promise to give me and the child a home? Is this what you call a home? He supported his belly and walked step by step toward Chu Yifan. Everyone was stunned by this sudden turn of events. Chu Yifan looked at him, his eyes filled with fear and disgust. What are you doing here, you crazy woman? Get out, get out. Lin Weiwei laughed until tears streamed down his face. I've given so much for you. I'm carrying your child, and now you tell me to get out. As if he had made up his mind, he suddenly pulled something out of his pocket, a small recording pen. Aren't you all curious about what he said to me to make me abort the child? He pressed the play button, and Chu Yifan's icy voice came from the recorder. Lin Weiwei, I'm warning you, get rid of the child immediately. Or don't blame me for what happens. Do you really think I love you? Don't be foolish. You're nothing more than a tool to satisfy my physical needs. What I need is a woman like Jiang Ruoxia, someone with a family background and the capability to help me build my career. What are you, a brainless pretty face? This child absolutely cannot stay. It will only become a stumbling block for me. One after another, unbearable words echoed clearly in everyone's ears. The content of the recording made everyone present gasp in shock. They looked at Chu Yifan with eyes full of disdain and contempt. Chu Yifan's face froze the moment he heard the recording, displaying a mix of shock, fear, and utter despair. He probably never imagined that his most private and despicable side would be exposed to the public by Lin Weiwei in this way. No, it's not true. He lunged forward like a madman, trying to snatch the recording pen from Lin Weiwei's hand. You bitch, how dare you record and scheme against me? Lin Weiwei was prepared and deftly dodged him. She looked at the furious man before her, her eyes filled only with deep hatred and mockery. Scheme against you, Chu Yifan, who is really scheming against whom? You sweet-talked me, saying I was your true love, while at the same time poisoning the child in my womb. You pushed me down and caused me to miscarry. Lying on the cold operating table, you couldn't even be bothered to come see me. What did you take me for? A piece of trash to be discarded after use. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, her voice growing sharper and more piercing. The accusations, filled with blood and tears, moved everyone present. It turned out the child wasn't lost by accident. It was caused by Chu Yifan himself. This man was no longer just selfish, He was downright insane. Every gaze directed at Chu Yifan in the conference room felt like an ice-cold blade. Chairman Wang was so furious that he stood up, pointing at Chu Yifan's nose and cursing. "Chu Yifan, I must have been blind to have supported you back then. You are simply worse than a beast. I used to think Ms. Jiang was being too harsh, but now I see that dealing with someone like you requires such methods. Our Fanxia technology absolutely cannot be left in the hands of someone like you." The shareholders were all enraged, echoing his sentiments. Chu Yifan was thoroughly berated. He looked around at the angry faces, then at Lin Weiwei's resolute expression, and finally turned his gaze to me. There was no longer anger in his eyes, only a plea. He seemed to be searching for a last glimmer of hope from me, but all he saw was my calm, unreadable expression. I walked past him and approached Lin Weiwei. This woman, whom I had once hated to the core, now looked somewhat pitiful. She, too, was a fool blinded by love, another victim. "Are you okay?" I asked her softly. Lin Weiwei was stunned. She seemed not to have expected me to speak to her, and in such a tone, she looked at me. Her eyes complex, filled with guilt, resentment, but mostly confusion. She opened her mouth, and tears fell. "I'm sorry. I know I have no right to say these words. I just couldn't accept it." "I understand," I nodded, "but destroying yourself to take revenge on a man who isn't worth it is the most foolish thing you could do." I took a business card from my bag and handed it to her. "This is lawyer Su Qin's card. You have evidence of his intentional harm. You can sue him. For yourself and for the child who never got to see this world." Lin Weiwei's hand trembled as she took the card. She looked at me, her lips quivering for a long time before finally saying, "Thank you, you're welcome." After handling all this, I returned to the conference table. "Everyone," I began, drawing everyone's attention back, "I believe there's no need to proceed with the vote on the motion to remove Mr. Chu Yifan. Chu Yifan, do you even have the face to stay here any longer?" Chu Yifan seemed to have been drained of his last ounce of strength, slumping into his chair. He knew it was over, completely over. His reputation was ruined, he was abandoned by everyone, and he had even broken his last lifeline with his own hands. In the end, he didn't say another word, he just gave me a look of utter defeat. Then, like a stray dog, staggered out of the conference room under everyone's contemptuous gazes. The business empire he had built with his own hands had expelled him on this day. One era had ended, and another was about to begin. I stood at the head of the conference room, gazing at the bright sunlight outside the window, and took a deep breath. "Everyone, starting today, I will officially take over as the chairman and CEO of Fanxia Technology. I assure you that Fanxia Technology will return to the right track under my leadership and achieve new heights." My voice was firm and confident, and the room erupted into prolonged applause. After the shareholders' meeting, I immediately dove into the intense work ahead. The first priority was to stabilize morale. Chu Yifan's scandal, coupled with my announcement to terminate the authorization of the star system, had plunged the entire company into a state of anxiety. I called an emergency closed-door meeting with all department heads overnight. "I know everyone is worried about the company's future right now," I said. "I promise you, the star system will not leave Fanxia. I will re-sign the authorization agreement with the company under a new cooperation model. As for the company's management, there will be a major reshuffle in the near future. All of Chu Yifan's close associates and those who hold positions without fulfilling their responsibilities will be removed, the capable will be promoted, and the incompetent will be replaced. I hope that everyone who stays will be a true partner willing to move forward with Fanxia Technology." My words reassured everyone present. Their biggest fear was that the company would lose its core technology and collapse entirely. Now that I had given them hope, the next step was to deal with the external mess. I instructed the public relations department to draft a new press release, officially announcing the company's personnel changes to the outside world. I also extended the sincerest apologies to all shareholders and investors for the negative impact caused by Chu Yifan's personal behavior on the market. At the same time, I announced that to compensate for the losses, the company would launch a brand new technology upgrade next quarter and pledged to allocate 10% of the annual profits for shareholder dividends. This series of measures had an immediate effect. The next day, although Fanxia Technology's stock price did not rebound immediately, it halted its downward trend. The market was watching, waiting to see if I, the newly appointed female CEO, had the ability to turn things around. I was determined to prove it to them through action. Over the next month, I practically lived at the company. During the day, I worked with the technical team day and night to iterate and upgrade the STAR system. At night, I dealt with mountains of documents, met with important partners, and repaired client relationships damaged by Chu Yifan. I lost 10 pounds, but I also became more capable and resilient. Seeing their boss working like a woman possessed, the company's employees were inspired with unprecedented determination. The entire company took on a refreshed and revitalized spirit. A month later, Fanxia Technology held its new quarterly product launch event. At the event, I personally took the stage to showcase the upgraded STAR System 2.0 to the world. It was faster, more powerful, and had broader application scenarios than its predecessor. The launch was an unprecedented success. The next day, Fanxia Technology's stock price hit rock bottom and rebounded, with 3 consecutive limit-up boards reigniting hope among all investors. And the name Jiang Ruoxia became widely recognized in the tech industry. No one called me Mrs. Chu anymore. They called me President Jiang. My career was on track, and the divorce lawsuit between me and Chu Yifan finally came to an end, because he had an affair during the marriage, transferred assets, and even intentionally harmed Lin Weiwei. Lin Weiwei ultimately sued him. With multiple charges combined, the court finally ruled that he would leave the marriage with nothing. All the assets we acquired after marriage, including the Guanlan mansion he once wanted to give to Lin Weiwei, were awarded to me. The shares of Fanxia Technology were also reallocated according to our actual contributions and ownership proportions. I received my rightful portion and became the legitimate largest shareholder of the company. On the day I received the court verdict, the weather was beautiful. As I walked out of the courthouse, Su Qin was waiting for me at the entrance. "Congratulations, Ruoxia, you're free," he said to me with a smile. I looked up at the clear blue sky and smiled as well. Yes, I was free, completely free from that suffocating marriage and from the man I had once loved and hated. Just then, I saw a familiar figure emerge from the other side of the courthouse. It was Chu Yifan. He looked even more haggard and downcast than a month ago, dressed in cheap clothes, his hair graying, and his back slightly hunched, as if he had aged 20 years overnight. He seemed to notice me too, standing there in a daze. His gaze fixed on me with a complex expression. I didn't look away but met his eyes calmly. Though only about 10 meters apart, the distance between us felt as vast as a century in the end. He walked toward me. Before he could speak, I asked in a tone as calm as if I were talking to a stranger, "Is there something you need?" He opened his mouth as if to say something but ultimately just took a set of keys from his pocket and handed them to me. These are the keys to our home. It's time to return them to you now." I looked at the familiar set of keys but didn't take them. "No need," I said calmly, "I've already changed the locks there." His hand, holding the keys, hung awkwardly in midair. After a long while, he forced a bitter smile and withdrew his hand. "Besides, you have everything now. I heard the company is doing very well under your leadership." "Yes," I nodded, "much better than when it was in your hands." My words stabbed into his heart like a knife once again. He fell silent, and the air around us grew heavy. After a long pause, he spoke again, his voice tinged with a hint of pleading. "Ruoxia, is there really no going back for us?" I looked at him. At this man I had loved with all my youth, and felt no hatred, no love, only a deep, unshakable calm. "Chu Yifan," I said, meeting his eyes word by word, "from the moment you betrayed me, there was no going back. I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. Let's each find our own peace from now on." With that, I turned away without another glance and walked with Su Qin toward the sunlit street. No sound came from behind me. I knew it was truly over between us. Life moved forward steadily, and without Chu Yifan, my world didn't collapse. Instead, it became broader and more vibrant. I poured all my energy into my career. Under my leadership, Fanxia Technology soared, tripling its market value and becoming a leading enterprise in China's big data sector. Thanks to my sharp business acumen and decisive leadership, I graced the covers of financial magazines multiple times, hailed by the public as the Iron Lady of the tech world. My parents, seeing my achievements, finally felt at ease. They no longer sighed over my failed marriage but took pride in my independence and strength. On weekends, I no longer had to revolve around the Chu family and could freely arrange my time. I would meet up with Suchin for sports, shopping, or art exhibitions, or simply stay alone in my spacious apartment at Guanlan Mansion, reading, listening to music, and enjoying the tranquility of solitude. I renovated that house according to my own preferred style, simple, bright, and airy, completely free. From the oppressive and gloomy atmosphere of the old home, I thought my life would continue like this, peaceful yet busy, until one day I received a call from my sister-in-law, Chu Feifei. We hadn't been in touch since our unpleasant parting at the dessert shop. On the phone, her voice sounded hesitant and timid. "Sis. No, President Jiang. Do you have time now? What is it?" My tone was flat. It's my dad." Chu Feifei's voice trembled with a hint of tears. "He's sick, very. Seriously, it's late-stage liver cancer." My hand holding the phone tightened slightly. I never had much fondness for Chu Zhengxiong. He was stubborn, chauvinistic, and cared more about so-called face and family lineage than anything else. Back then, for the sake of the Chu family's reputation, he had pressured me to forgive Chu Yifan. But as an elder, hearing about his critical illness still stirred a sense of melancholy in me. "Which hospital is he in now?" I asked. "At City Hospital, I see." After hanging up, I hesitated for a moment but still asked my driver to prepare the car and head to the hospital. Out of both sentiment and reason, I should pay a visit. In the hospital corridor, I saw my mother-in-law, Li Lan. After not seeing her for months, she seemed to have aged over a decade. Her hair had turned grey, her face was covered in wrinkles, and the light in her eyes had faded, replaced by a dull, vacant look. When she saw me, she froze for a moment before a flash of venomous resentment sparked in her eyes. "What are you doing here? Come to laugh at our family's misfortune?" Her voice was sharp and harsh. "The reason our Chu family has ended up like this is all because of you. You jinx." I didn't argue with her. There's no reasoning with someone who has lost their senses. I tried to walk past her to see the patient in the ward, but she lunged at me like a madwoman, gripping my arm tightly. "I'm telling you, Jiang Ruoxia, even if my husband dies, we don't need your fake sympathy. Get out of here, the farther the better." Her nails dug deep into my flesh, and it hurt. Other patients and their families in the corridor cast strange glances our way. I didn't want to stage a scene with her here. "Let go." My voice was cold. "I won't let go, you poisonous woman. You ruined my son, and now you're here to mock my husband. I'll fight you." She flailed wildly, trying to grab my hair. Just then, a hand reached out from the side and seized Li Lan's wrist. "Mom, what are you doing? Let go." It was Chu Yifan. I didn't know. When he had arrived, he forcefully pulled Li Lan away and stood in front of me. "Enough, haven't you caused enough trouble? Dad is still lying in there." He growled at Li Lan, stunned by his outburst. Li Lan seemed to find an outlet for her emotions and began pounding his chest, wailing loudly. "What am I making a fuss about? Our family is about to fall apart. If your father is gone and you're left with nothing because of this woman, what's the point of me living anymore?" Chu Yifan let him beat on him, his face filled with pain and helplessness. Watching this chaotic scene before me, I felt utterly exhausted. I didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore, so I turned around and prepared to leave. "Ruoxia, don't go." Chu Yifan suddenly called out to stop me. He comforted his mother first, then quickly walked up to me. "I'm afraid he wants to see you." In the end, I walked into that hospital room filled with the smell of disinfectant. Chu Zhengxiong lay on the hospital bed, various tubes inserted into his body. He had become so thin he was almost unrecognizable, completely devoid of the authoritative air he once had as the head of the family. Seeing me enter, a complex emotion flickered in his cloudy eyes. He weakly waved his hand at Chu Yifan and Li Lan. You go out first. I want to speak with Ruoxia alone." Li Lan was reluctantly pulled out by Chu Yifan, leaving only him and me in the room. "Sit," he said, pointing to the chair by the bed. I sat down as instructed. We faced each other in silence, the atmosphere heavy. After a long while, he finally spoke slowly, his voice like an old, broken bellows, raspy and full of static. "Ruoxia, I know our Chu family has wronged you." I hadn't expected him to say such a thing. This stubborn old man, in his final moments, seemed to have finally learned to reflect. I used to think that a man having some affairs outside wasn't a big deal, as long as he still cared about the family and could earn money to support it. A woman should just turn a blind eye. It's me, I didn't raise Yifan properly. I spoiled him into what he is today. As he spoke, 2 streams of remorseful tears flowed from his cloudy eyes. All my life, I've been proud and valued face above all else. But in the end, the son I was most proud of has become the laughingstock of the entire Jiangcheng. Our Chu family has become gossip for others after meals. This is all retribution. He coughed violently, his face turning red. I quickly stood up to pat his back and poured a glass of warm water, bringing it to his lips. He took a few sips before gradually calming down. He grabbed my hand. That once strong and powerful hand was now bony and cold, without a trace of warmth. Ruoxia, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I just want to ask you for one thing. Yifan, he is, after all, my son. He has nothing now, can't find a job, just drinks all day, muddling through. I'm afraid after I'm gone, no one will look after him. Could you, for the sake of my old face, give him a way out, arrange a simple position for him in the company, so he can have a bite to eat? Don't let him end up on the streets. He looked at me with an almost pleading gaze. My heart was a whirlwind of emotions. How pitiful the hearts of parents are. No matter how unworthy Chu Yifan was, in Chu Zhangxiong's heart, he was still a child in need of protection. I remained silent for a long time before finally gently withdrawing my hand from his palm. Dad, I still called him as I used to. I can give him a sum of money, enough to ensure he lives comfortably for the rest of his life. But I cannot let him return to the company. This is not just for my sake, but also for the sake of all the employees and shareholders of the company. Fanxia Technology must no longer have any connection with him. This is my bottom line. My response was calm, yet cruel. Chu Xingyong looked at me, the light in his eyes gradually dimming. He knew I would no longer compromise. Slowly, he closed his eyes, his face filled with despair. Forget it, he murmured to himself. It's all fate. When I left the hospital, my mood also grew heavy. Chu Yifan and Li Lan were waiting for me in the hallway. What did my dad say to you? Chu Yifan asked me urgently, looking at this man I once admired, who now could only pin his hopes on his elderly father's dying request. I felt a deep sense of pity. He hoped I would let you return to the company, I said truthfully. A glimmer of hope instantly sparked in Chu Yifan's eyes. He thought I had agreed. Ruoxia, you. I refused. I interrupted him. The light on his face instantly vanished. Why? He looked at me in disbelief. Jiang Ruoxia, are you really this heartless? Do you have to drive me to the brink? I said I would give you a sum of money. I don't want your money, he roared angrily, as if I had stepped on a sore spot. Chu Yifan, I haven't fallen so low that I need my ex-wife's charity. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Lan, standing beside him, also began to scream. Jiang Ruoxia, are you determined to drive our entire family to ruin? If anything happens to my husband, I won't let you off even as a ghost. Looking at this mother and son pair, who seemed to have lost their minds, I felt nothing but disgust. Even now, they still failed to recognize their own mistakes. They only believed that my cruelty had led them to their current miserable state. There was nothing more to say to them. Without another word, I turned and walked away. Jiang Ruoxia, stop right there. Chu Yifan's hysterical roar echoed from behind me. I didn't look back. Instead, I quickened my pace. I just wanted to escape this place of trouble and these suffocating people as quickly as possible. However, I hadn't taken more than a few steps when I heard the sound of hurried footsteps and Li Lan's startled cry from behind. Yifan, what are you doing? I instinctively turned around. And then I saw a scene I would never forget for the rest of my life. Chu Yifan, as if gone mad, rushed to the corridor window, climbed up, and flipped over the ledge. This was the 8th floor of the inpatient department. Jiang Ruoxia, standing on the windowsill, he roared at me. I'll ask you one last time. Will you agree or not? If you don't agree today, I'll jump from here. He was threatening me with his own life. The entire corridor instantly descended into chaos. Patients screaming, nurses running over, someone calling the police. Li Lan collapsed to the floor in terror, crying out, "Son, come down quickly, don't do anything foolish." I stood there, watching the crazed man on the windowsill, feeling as if all the blood in my body had frozen. Chu Yifan stood on the 8th-floor windowsill, his body teetering precariously. The evening wind tousled his disheveled hair, making him look like a desperate gambler who had staked his last and only chip. In that moment, my heart almost stopped beating. I hated him, loathed him, but I had never once wished for his death. Chu Yifan, you're insane. Get down now, I shouted at him, my voice trembling in a way I hadn't even realized. I'm not insane, he laughed hysterically at me. Jiang Ruoxia, you forced me into this, you took everything from me, and now you won't even grant my father's last wish. Do you just want to see me live like a dog in this world? I'm telling you, it's impossible. His emotions were dangerously intense. The doctors and nurses nearby didn't dare approach, afraid of provoking him. Li Lan was on the verge of fainting from crying and was being supported by someone. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me, as if I were the judge holding the power of life and death. A single nod from me could save this man's life. But could I nod? I couldn't. If I gave in and agreed to his demand today, it would be like inviting a wolf into the house. He would cling to me and the company like a malignant tumor, sucking us dry of every last bit of vitality. By then, not only I but the entire Fanxia technology would be dragged into the abyss. But if I didn't nod, I didn't dare think any further. My mind was racing, but I forced myself to calm down. Fine, I looked at him and slowly spoke. I agree. Upon hearing my words, a glimmer of triumph flashed in Chu Yifan's eyes. He knew I wouldn't dare to gamble. He knew I would ultimately soften. But then I changed my tone. No, what do you mean now? He looked at me warily. You come down first, I said in a tone that brooked no argument. Once you're down, we'll go sign the agreement, black and white. I'll arrange a position for you, give you company shares, and ensure you never have to worry about food or clothing for the rest of your life. Do you think I'm stupid? Chu Yifan sneered. Once I'm down, if you go back on your word, who will I turn to? You promise me right here, in front of everyone. He was forcing me to make a promise in front of everyone, so I would have no room to back out. I looked at him, at his face twisted with excitement, and a bone-chilling cold suddenly rose in my heart. How could someone be so shameless, using their own life to hold someone else's kindness and bottom line hostage? I took a deep breath, and my gaze gradually turned cold. Chu Yifan, I'll give you 10 seconds to come down on your own, otherwise you'll bear the consequences. My words left everyone stunned, including Chu Yifan. He seemed not to have expected me to say such a thing under these circumstances. What do you mean? He stammered. What I mean is, I looked him straight in the eye, enunciating each word clearly. Your life or death has nothing to do with me. If you want to jump, then jump. Jiang Ruoxia will never compromise an inch for someone like you again. With that, I turned away from him and headed straight for the stairwell. My every step was taken with extraordinary resolve. Behind me came Chu Yifan's incredulous roar. Jiang Ruoxia, stop, you heartless woman, are you really going to abandon me? Aren't you afraid I'll really jump and leave you with a lifetime of infamy? I didn't stop. Infamy? Ha! From the moment I decided to hold the press conference, I had already stopped caring about such things. All I knew was that I could no longer afford to be soft-hearted. Kindness toward the wicked is cruelty to oneself. Step by step, I descended the stairs, my heart pounding wildly. I was afraid I might truly hear the sound of a heavy object hitting the ground, yet my reason told me I couldn't look back. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. I reached the corner of the 7th-floor staircase. Just then, a commotion and cries of alarm erupted behind me. My body instantly stiffened. I dared not turn around, fearing I would see the very scene I dreaded most. Got him, quick, pull him up. It was the voices of nurses and patients' family members. My heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally settled. I leaned against the cold wall, feeling my legs go weak, almost unable to stand. It turned out that just as I turned to leave and Chu Yifan, distracted, was roaring at me, several quick-thinking doctors and family members seized the opportunity. Before he could react, they yanked him down from the windowsill. The farce had finally come to an end. I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling as though I had survived a calamity. I didn't go back upstairs. I had no desire to see Chu Yifan's disgusting face again. I took out my phone and sent a message to Su Qin. Help me arrange something. I want to send a commendation banner to the hospital and to those brave doctors and family members. Then I walked out of the hospital's main entrance. The sunlight outside was somewhat blinding. I raised my hand to shield my eyes. But I couldn't block the warmth that streamed through the gaps between my fingers. I knew that from today onward, the last remaining tie between Chu Yifan and me was completely severed. He could no longer use any means to hold my life hostage. In the end, Chu Xingyong didn't make it. 1 week after his son's jumping stunt, he passed away. The funeral was a quiet affair. On behalf of the company, I sent a wreath to Fanxia Technology, fulfilling the last bit of courtesy. I didn't attend in person. Su Qin advised me that, both emotionally and logically, I should go to pay my final respects. I refused. I no longer wanted any interaction with the Chu family. I just wanted to live my own life in peace. Not long after the funeral, Li Lan sold the old house and followed Chu Feifei to live in another city. I heard that Chu Feifei's boyfriend's family had some connections there and arranged a good job for her. Before leaving, Chu Feifei sent me a long message. She said she used to be immature, always thinking of me as an outsider, believing I had taken her brother away. It wasn't until she went through so much that she realized how much I had given for this family. Only then did she see clearly what kind of person her brother really was. She said she was sorry and thanked me for not giving in to her brother's threats, for holding my ground, and for helping her see reality and learn to grow. Finally, she said she hoped I would find happiness in the future. Reading that message, I felt a pang of emotion. In this world, some people need to experience deep pain before they can truly grow up. I replied to her, "You too. I wish you happiness." As for Chu Yifan, after Chu Zhenxiong's death, he became a completely neglected orphan. Li Lan and Chu Feifei didn't take him with them when they left. They seemed to have given up on him entirely. I kept my promise and had Su Qin transfer him a sum of money. Not a lot, but enough for an ordinary person to live out the rest of their life in peace. I thought he would take the money and leave this city that had brought him so much sorrow and despair, starting over somewhere no one knew him. But I never expected that he would pour all of it into a casino, hoping to win back everything he had lost through gambling. The outcome was predictable. In less than half a year, he lost everything and ended up with a huge debt from loan sharks. Debt collectors came to the company, but I coldly turned them away. Later, I heard about him again from a piece of social news. The report said the police had cracked a theft ring, and the main culprit was Chu Yifan. In the photo, he looked gaunt and hollow-eyed, wearing prison clothes and being restrained by police officers. I stared at that photo for a long time, but my heart felt no ripple of emotion, only a sense of pity. A once favored son of heaven, a young and promising CEO of a listed company, had ended up like this. One wrong step led to another, and in life, there truly is no turning back. As for Lin Weiwei, she eventually took Chu Yifan to court, with solid evidence. Chu Yifan was convicted of intentional injury and sentenced to 3 years in prison, a fitting punishment. She won the lawsuit and received compensation. Later, she also left the city, reportedly returning to her hometown to open a small flower shop and live a quiet life. It seemed everyone had found their own ending. Those who had hurt me had paid the price they deserved, and I could finally let go of the past completely. A year later, at the grand annual gala of Fanxia Technology, I stood on stage as the chairman, delivering the New Year's address. Below sat all the employees of our company, looking at me with admiration and trust in their eyes. When I finished speaking, thunderous applause erupted. I stepped off the stage, and Su Qin approached me with a glass of champagne. "Happy New Year, President Jiang." He raised his glass to me with a smile. "Happy New Year." I smiled back and clinked glasses with him. "How do you feel?" he asked, looking at me. "Now you're the idol of all independent women." I shook my head and chuckled softly. "I'm no idol. I'm just an ordinary woman who, after experiencing betrayal and hurt, is trying her best to live a better life." We exchanged a smile and downed the champagne in our glasses. Outside the window, brilliant fireworks bloomed one after another in the night sky, illuminating the entire city as bright as day. As I watched the dazzling display, my heart was filled with peace and warmth. I knew that the dark, long winter that had belonged to me was over. Spring had arrived, and my life was just beginning.